Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now a major warning signal is flashing on this Bitcoin chart as the price is still playing out this short-term bullish divergence while more liquidity is building to the upside on this Bitcoin chart, while Ethereum is still playing out this short-term oversold signal. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in this video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, taking a look at the 4-day Bitcoin chart, and as of right now, the super trend indicator is still sitting in the red, indicating a larger bearish trend here on the larger time frames. And if we're taking a look at the 2-day time frame, we can still see this larger bearish trend forming lower highs and lower lows, which is what a bearish trend is. But of course, during this bearish trend, we can see the occasional move back to the upside in the short term during the larger bearish trend. So keep that in mind as well. And as of right now, the support line for this massive descending broadening wedge pattern, basically the bearish trend, this support line right now is sitting at just around 53,000, give or take. And this line of resistance is sitting at approximately $68,000. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin chart, looking at the US dollar index, also known as the DXY, and what we've just seen over the last 1 to 2 days is actually now a bounce back to the upside in the short term in the DXY, which is a bit of a warning signal, a bearish signal for the price of Bitcoin and crypto, at least in the short term. Because typically when the DXY is seeing these bullish movements, oftentimes that coincides with bearish moves in the price of Bitcoin, as we've seen time and time again. And now, obviously, it's not a 100% perfect accurate indicator. There are some times here and there where these two might be moving in the same direction. But with that being said, when we're seeing a spike to the upside here in the DXY, that's at least a bit of a warning signal to pay attention to for the price of Bitcoin. And especially if we see a continued bullish move in the DXY. So for example, if we just see this basically, and then we continued further to the downside, that's not much of a warning signal, only a slight warning signal here in the short term. But if we see a much larger bullish movement actually now start playing out in the DXY, then that would be a much larger warning signal or a larger bearish signal for Bitcoin. And so for now, it's just an early warning signal, something to start paying attention to as we're just starting to see a bounce back to the upside here in the DXY just in the short term. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin chart, obviously over the last few days, we saw this break to the downside below this area on the chart, which was previous support and should now be acting as a new resistance, which we actually just saw a bit of a short-term rejection from over the last 1 day or so. And that area is in between around 60,000 to just above 61,000 acting as resistance. And above that area, we have more resistance at around 62.9K and more resistance closer towards 64,500. And as for support, right now we do have a bit of short-term support at around 58,000, but if we break below 58,000, we have this significant area of support right here in between around 56 to 57,000, and below that area we also have a little bit of support at around 54,000 and a major area of support in between 51 to 53,000. So those are the main levels of support that I'm currently paying attention to, at least for now. And with that being said, if we're zooming into the shorter term, looking at the 45-minute chart, just the imminent short term here, which this is also visible on the 1-hour time frame. Like I said in my last video, we have a bullish divergence, which I said yesterday is confirmed. So like I said yesterday, we should be expecting either a slight bullish relief or some choppy sideways price action here in the short term, basically a break from all of the bearish price action here, which over the last 1 day, we saw pretty much exactly that. Obviously, we saw that bullish relief followed by a little bit of a dump to the downside, but ultimately we did not dump below where this bullish divergence actually formed. And so ultimately what basically started out as a bullish relief turned into choppy sideways price action, because from where we were just yesterday, we've basically gone sideways. And now it's possible that this could continue to play out and we could see similar price action like what we saw just here, potentially over the next 1 day. That is still a possibility, but I would not be overly confident on this bullish divergence to continue to play out much longer, because like I said in my last video, these small patterns on these small time frames, like the 45-minute chart or the hour chart, for example, usually these signals and these patterns on these small time frames only last for a matter of hours, maybe over 1 to 2 days or so. but ultimately these smaller signals on the smaller time frames are not as significant as something, say, on the larger time frames. For example, this larger trend obviously lasts a lot longer compared to what we see on the smaller time frames. And so for those of you that want something different to look at basically every single day and you're bored with just the same thing over and over again, the small time frames are definitely for you, because these small time frames basically flip between bullish and bearish pretty much every single day. But for those of you that cannot keep up with the market changing direction basically every single day, obviously stick to the larger time frames, because these larger time frames take a lot longer to reverse direction. And just before I talk about some other important Bitcoin charts today, first, if you want to actually trade these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, personally, I take just about all of my trades over on Bybit. So I'll make sure to leave a link to Bybit down below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link down below this video to make a Bybit account and deposit on that account, then you can get up to a $30,000 deposit bonus, but only if you use that link down below this video. And also, if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here, which is a massive lucky draw happening right now over on Bybit, where you could potentially win up to $100,000 or potentially some free Bitcoin or Ethereum or USDT, or even a trip to an F1 race just by trading crypto using the link down below this video. And so if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. Once again, first link down below this video. But for whatever reason, if you cannot access Bybit or if you cannot KYC on Bybit, there's another exchange called Bitget where you don't need KYC at all. So for example, if you're from the US or the UK, for example, you may not be able to access Bybit, but you can access Bitget. And over here, if you use the link down below this video to Bitget, you can claim up to a 5,500 USDT bonus. And also, only using that link, you can get a 10% discount on all trading fees on the Bitget exchange, but only if you use that link below this video. And so for an alternative option out there, for those of you that might not want a KYC when signing up to an exchange, there is this option as well. Once again, that link down below this video will get you a bunch of extra bonuses and discounts on fees. But with that being said, taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, and as of right now, we have some major levels of liquidity starting to build to the upside here in the short term, starting at around 62,500 and going up towards roughly around 63,000. And now we do have a small amount of liquidity at around 58,000 to 58,500 and a small amount of liquidity at around 61,500. But once again, the main levels of liquidity to pay attention to right now just in the short term are sitting at around 62.5k and around 63k approximately. And so those are some potential price targets to pay attention to, but keep in mind that between the current price and those higher levels of liquidity, of course, we still have some strong levels of resistance along the way. So keep that in mind. It's not like this is enough reason by itself in order to expect the price to go straight towards that level, because obviously we cannot just look at one chart by itself. We need to try and factor in as much information as possible. And right now we still have some major levels of resistance above the current price. So as the price potentially tries to take out that liquidity, we could also find rejections or the price struggling around these key levels of resistance along the way. And so that's why I said just in the short term, it is still quite likely that we could play out a little bit of a break from all of this bearish price action here, the larger bearish trend. It's likely we're going to see a continued relief or break from the trend, possibly in the form of a bit of a sideways consolidation here, something like that as one of the most likely scenarios just in the imminent short term, as the price is running into key resistance, which is ultimately kind of preventing the price basically heading towards those higher levels of liquidity. But with that being said, taking a look at Ethereum on the 3-day time frame, and right now the price is still clearly within the larger bearish trend, forming lower highs and lower lows. But just in the imminent short term, we're basically in a bit of a sideways price range in between around 2450 to 2.5k as the support and 2.8k as the resistance. And while the price is basically consolidating sideways here in the shorter term, we're currently seeing a bit of a reset here in the RSI back up towards more neutral levels from very close to oversold territories, as we saw just a couple of weeks ago here. But ultimately, as we see a further reset, as we're seeing a bit of a break here in the short term from the bearish trend, the reset in the RSI can give us some more room to the downside later on. And so that's why I'm saying that in the imminent short term, we could potentially still see a bit of a sideways consolidation, so a bit of a pause from the bearish trend, but not necessarily the end of the bearish trend or a reversal into a bullish trend. And if we're zooming into the shorter term, looking at the 8-hour time frame, like I said in my last video, we have this oversold signal, which already confirmed over the last couple of days here in the 8-hour Ethereum RSI. And if we're looking at all of these last few times here, where we saw an oversold signal confirm in the 8-hour Ethereum RSI, this marked at least a local low in the price before we saw at least some sort of relief in the short term over the next few days, maybe over the next few weeks. But ultimately, this signal by itself is not enough to confirm the bottom for the bearish trend, because obviously, as we saw just here, we saw a bullish relief over the next half a week to nearly 1 week, but ultimately we continued the bearish trend later on once we reset the RSI, giving us more room to the downside later on. And so one of the most likely scenarios here in the short term is that we're most likely going to see a bit more of a break from the bearish trend in the form of most likely some choppy sideways price action leaning slightly in the bullish direction, something like this, but then potentially in around a week or something like that, basically that sort of time frame, around a week give or take, we could possibly see the continuation of the bearish trend later on once we see a further reset here in the RSI, simply based on what we've seen in all of these previous examples. And if we're zooming further into the short term, looking at the 6-hour time frame, we also still have this active rising wedge pattern, which is a bearish pattern, which I talked about in my last video. And so this gives us a bearish price target, which is sitting at approximately 2.3k. But once again, before we start heading closer towards that price target at 2.3k, potentially over the next couple of days, we could continue to see a bit more of a break from the bearish trend. So keep that in mind here in the short term. And as for short-term support and resistance, we do have support once again at around 2450 to 2.5k approximately, and we have some key resistance at around 2550 to 2.6k based on previous support now acting as new resistance. And if we're taking a look at the price of Solana on the daily time frame, right now the price of Solana is on the edge of potentially breaking to the downside here. Right now, at the time of recording this video, we're trading right at around 139, which is basically the bottom side of this area of support in between around 139 to 143, give or take. And as I've talked about over the last few days already, if we see a break below 139, especially if we start seeing daily candle closes below 139, breaking below this previous low, then in that case, expect a move potentially back down towards this area of support in between 120 to 128. And as we can see over the last multiple months here, 120 to 128 is significant support for the price of Solana. So far over the last nearly half a year, give or take, we've seen major buying pressure, major demand in that price range right there. And also, if we lose this area of support, if we break below 139, then technically that could potentially become new resistance if we first break below that area. And as for other levels of resistance, we still have strong resistance right here, which is pretty much exactly where we saw rejection from, in between around 159 to 163. And obviously in the imminent short term, things are looking more bearish as of right now, but looking at the larger trend at play, this is ultimately still occurring within a larger sideways price range, with the overall trend looking relatively neutral with relatively horizontal highs and horizontal lows. But remember, a massive sideways price range can contain short-term bullish price action and short-term bearish price action during the sideways price range. And once again, if you want to trade these moves in the price of any crypto, check out those links down below this video to claim those extra bonuses. And if you want to actually know how to trade crypto, no matter if the price is bullish, bearish, or chopping around sideways, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions. And the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.